Well, we know whenever we get a reading from the book of Job, we're in for it, in the sense that we're going to get a very raw, direct, and unvarnished presentation of the human life and its sufferings and its distress. And we certainly have that today. Job, in his lament, is not human life on earth a drudgery? 9 to 5, if you're lucky enough to have a job. But it often feels like a drudgery, does it not? Are we not like hirelings, slaves even, he says, going about our tasks? So I've been assigned months of misery. Well, it's 11 months now since COVID shutdowns. And troubled nights, there we go. He's describing insomnia here. If I'm in bed, I say, when will it be morning? The night drags on. I toss and turn until the dawn. This could have been written yesterday, in some commentary on the current situation. My days come to an end without hope. Oh, I hope we don't feel hopeless. Remember that my life is like the wind. How fleeting and how fragile. I shall not see happiness again. Literally, I shall not see good again. Well, hopefully we're not there. But we can feel that way sometime. And we can have all sorts of inner distress, not just outer trials, of course, but inner distress, psychological as well as physical. Luckily, the psalm assures us, this beautiful Psalm 147, that the Lord is there to heal the brokenhearted, to bind up our wounds. And he calls us each by name. And if we needed any proof of that, we have it in the gospel. God who became one of us, and Jesus who sent his only Son. What did he do when he started preaching? Well, he didn't just preach or teach, he healed. That's the main thing that attracted people to him, as we see all throughout this first chapter of Mark that we've been reading in the past couple of weeks. He begins with Peter's own mother-in-law, and then after sunset they bring him all these people who are distressed. And I often point out they brought them after sunset because if you touch the sick and the diseased and during the day, you're unclean until nightfall. So if it's already nightfall, you don't have to worry about that. But Jesus, of course, doesn't care about that, and he always touches people or helps people lets the people touch him, putting a hand on the shoulder, etc., to reassure and to bring healing. In any case, as it says, various diseases, and it says 3 times here that he was casting out demons. Okay, we're not talking about fallen angels walking around with pitchforks. We're talking about, actually, energies that are generated by human beings. Negative energies that are all around us and within us, and if we're on the same wavelength, we can get possessed, literally. That's what they mean. That's what we're really talking about here. Possessed by these things, taken over. It gets augmented because we're plugging into the same kind of powerful negative energies around us, with plenty of it in our own society now. So when we're talking about being possessed by demons, we mean fear, anger, hatred, all the kinds of phobias that we have, xenophobia, homophobia, fear of the immigrant, people of different racism. Oh, that's one of the worst, of course, today, and always has been. People of other religions, races, etc. So that's what we're talking about here. These are the demons, the real ones, the effectively active ones in our lives and in our society, in our church, in our country, in our world, that need to be cast out. All right? So we need to face these, and all other sorts of psychological miseries that were even in Jesus' time, were called demonic possession. But these that I'm talking about are what we really have to face in our own. That's why in our time, human life is such a drudgery, and why it can seem like we'll never see happiness again. with all the nonsense and stuff going around, you know. Conspiracy theories are certainly some of the worst demons in our country now. It just goes right off the wall, you know. But as soon as you plug in, you go down that rabbit hole, you get possessed. Literally possessed. So you really, really got to watch out. So we need to get close to the Lord. The Lord is the one that casts out the demons. But we need to be active, not just passive recipients, but then active members of society and church and country and world, so that we can, in our turn, bring healing. That's what we're called to do as members of Christ. Like St. Paul is describing in the second reading. This is where we're called to go with this. So it's not just St. Paul, the great apostle, but all of us are called to, as he says, I have to preach the gospel. It's laid on me, whether I want to or not. And that's true of us. We're all called to be apostles and to be priests, prophets, and kings in the world, to bring healing to our own world and to our own time. And then Paul goes on in a very profound way to explain what that actually means, coming up against people, our fellow human beings, our fellow members of the body of Christ, really. We're all members of one human family, whatever our race or religion or whatever. And he says that I've become all things to all people. Wow. So what does that mean? It means delving into, empathizing with the human experience behind it. What drives people to conspiracy theories? What in their psychological or social or economic or religious lives brought them there? Why are they there? Why are we there, maybe? So becoming all things means to empathize. So there's a verse left out here. Paul says, I became a Jew to the Jews as a person under the law, even though I'm not, he says. I entered into that world. Then I became a Gentile to the Gentiles. He says, I became without law to those who do not have the law, the Mosaic law. Even though I'm not, he says, without law, I have the law of Christ. So it's very clever, very perceptive, and very profound. And then he says, I became a weak person to those who are weak. Now, if you know, elsewhere in Paul's writings, he explains what he means by the weak. He doesn't mean those who are physically weak. He means those who are scrupulous. The ones who think that they need to keep the old customs and they're too afraid to let go of all the old customs in the Mosaic law, for example. Those are the weak. So today's world, there are lots of people like that who are afraid to let go of the old customs and don't want to move forward. They want to cling to what's safe and what seems to be. He calls them the weak. Okay, but he becomes weak with them. He enters into their mentality. He understands it. He knows, being a Pharisee himself in his former life, he knows what it's like. He knows the mentality from within. So he's able to sympathize and empathize and meet them where they are in a non-judgmental way, fully understanding and resonating, with them emotionally and humanly. That's what we need to do with those who are different from us. There's never we'll never be able to build up trust and collaboration and cooperation again if we're always just standing apart and judging them. Look at how crazy they are, from whatever side. So he says, I became all things to all people so that by all means I might save some of them, so that we might make some progress forward. That's the program he's presenting us with. But we can't just do that by willpower. It's really too big a program. We can't get to that level of depth and that level of empathy on our own. So this is where we need to do what Jesus himself, if he needs to do it, we certainly do. What he does after all that healing, he gets up really early in the morning while it's still dark and goes out to the desert alone. Close the door of your room and pray to your Father in secret. We need to pray deeply. You can't just be rattling off prayers. That won't get you anywhere. Zero. We have to go deep into ourselves to confront whatever's preventing us from connecting to God and to one another and everybody who's everybody, all things to all people. The Lord is the only one who can help us do that, to go down deep. I just recently heard a description of a profound spiritual experience someone had. And as usual with all profound spiritual experiences, they had the sense of the love of God being the ultimate reality, the only reality in the end, and the compassion for all the people we might have tended to judge as part of this experience that the person was describing, because it seemed that everybody's doing the best they can, which is probably a good thing to think. No matter how crazy it might seem, probably doing the best they can. If we go into all the circumstances, as I say, of their lives and really understood where they're coming from, very few people have pure bad will. They're doing the best they can. But if we can so are we, hopefully. So if people can empathize with us and we with them, but it's only possible if we get the heart of Christ and connect through Christ to all the body of Christ, all our brothers and sisters who are Christ, and let Christ be Christ to them, Christ to Christ in them, to them. That's the only way forward. We can't do it just by deciding, well, I guess I'll change. No, you won't change unless the Lord changes us to be able to do that. And what you become that way, and I like to present it this way, you become a contemplative, where you rest in the Lord, you begin to see and see with Christ's eyes and feel with Christ's heart and act with Christ's hands. And as a contemplative, you can become all things to all people because you're not any of those things alone. You're not liberal or conservative. So you can become liberal to the liberals and conservative to the conservatives because you're Christ. You can certainly do all of it. And of course, you don't fit anymore into either one of those categories. So actually might be a little test for yourself sometimes. Do I check all the boxes in the liberal category? Do I check all the boxes in the conservative category? Well, then you're probably not connected fully to Christ, because you're not going to be able to check all the boxes in any category once you become Christified. Christified. And then you won't fit into any box. You won't be able to be called, oh, he's that, she's that. No. It's contemplative. Becoming Christ-like, God-like, which includes everyone and embraces everyone and brings healing and hope and joy and peace to everyone. That's what we need to become. And then without even trying, because Christ is doing it in us, we'll be able to bring healing and hope and joy to the world. First of all, having received it ourselves, so that we can sleep soundly without tossing and turning all night, in anguish and fear or whatever, because we're resting in the infinite peace and life and love of God. So for our own sake, but even more for the sake of the church and the country and the world, let's become contemplatives. Let's become real agents of healing by letting the life of Christ take over in us and transform us, convert us and change us, so that we can know what it means to really be human, all things to all humans, and truly divine, in, with, and as Christ.